Morning Majority on 630.
WMAL.
7:07 on a Monday morning in Washington, D.C. This is the Morning Majority. It's Brian Neiman, Jim Pathakoukas from CNBC and from Reuters. Thanks for coming in.
I'm still enthusiastic 2 hours in. It's not waned at all.
Joe DIGENOVA, our legal expert, joins us now. He knows all about getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's never easy, is it, Joe?
Good morning.
So we wake up this morning in front of the New York Times and Washington Post, and I think NPR also has it this morning, which is, they have information that they got from WikiLeaks about Guantanamo Bay. What is the law on this? I mean, are these newspapers allowed to print classified information? Is there any type of a penalty for this that the government could put on these companies, these newspapers?
First of all, the issue is that this is what the New York Times case, the Pentagon Papers case, is all about. Can you prevent publication? And the Supreme Court said no, they can publish. But the Supreme Court also said that theoretically, the government has the power to prosecute them for publishing that information, even if it cannot stop it. Now, the government has never chosen to prosecute any newspaper, which makes it highly unlikely that it will ever prosecute WikiLeaks. And the reason is WikiLeaks has basically become a wire service for this type of information.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to prosecute WikiLeaks, then there's no way you can't prosecute the New York Times for publishing the secret information about the NSA intercepts after 9/11. So the bottom line is it's impossible to have a prosecution in this case.
Okay, so you think that essentially that it's not going after the media, would be more still going after the individuals who have leaked this stuff to WikiLeaks and to whoever.
So, sure, the Bradley Manning and anyone else with whom he conspired, the government was, there were, oddly enough, there were leaks about how the government was trying to pursue the guy who's Julian Assange, as perhaps conspiring with Bradley Manning, but that was a theory that was in search of logic, because every newspaper in essence conspires with the person who's leaking to them by receiving the information. That's not good enough under the law to prosecute the newspaper, and it certainly isn't going to be good enough to prosecute WikiLeaks.
So Julian Assange, as far as his liability in this country, is what then?
None.
All right.
None at this point. He hasn't been indicted by anybody, and I know the Justice Department says it's a continuing, ongoing investigation.
Leading to nowhere.
But the issue is, who in the government leaked the information? Those are always the people that the government goes after because they don't involve any First Amendment issue of publication.
All right. What about when it comes to assassination? There's this call now with what we're doing in Libya to say, hey, let's just go after Gaddafi. Let's not, mess around with this. And some people have said, essentially, target Muammar Gaddafi. Is it legal to just target Muammar Gaddafi and try to assassinate him? It
is indeed. Although there was an executive order signed by President Ford in the 1970s, which he signed after the government discovered, quote-unquote, that the CIA was trying to assassinate foreign leaders, the President Ford signed an executive order saying that the United States couldn't do this. Now, that order has been modified several times by presidents to allow for assassinations, for example, after 9/11. President Bush signed an order allowing for targeted assassinations. President Obama is conducting targeted assassinations in Pakistan and Afghanistan, mostly through the use of drones. In Libya, not only do we have those orders outstanding, but we are basically, although not technically legally, in a state of war. We are, in fact, in a state of war. Our forces are engaged, and under international law, when there is war, you can take out the leader of the country.
But going after Gaddafi would seem to exceed this UN mandate. Are we free to just ignore the UN mandate as well?
Well, the issue there becomes who's going to complain? The UN mandate says prevent civilian casualties, a humanitarian disaster. What would be the best way to do that? That would be, according to the president, a Gaddafi goes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the president has never said that he doesn't want to assassinate Gaddafi. He just says he wants Gaddafi to go. I think purposely people have left the issue vague about whether or not he can be killed. They're not firing into his compound because they want to give him a get-out-of-jail-free card. They're trying to kill him.
So if we should kill him, there's not going to be, who's going to go after us? Who is really going to complain that Muammar Gaddafi is dead at this point?
There isn't going to be a trial at The Hague for anybody who kills Gaddafi.
All right, well, let's talk about Terry Jones, the pastor from Florida who was up in Michigan this past weekend where he wanted to have essentially a protest outside one of the biggest mosques in Michigan. He was briefly jailed after he refused to pay a $1 bond that was ordered by the judge. And that judge also barred him from approaching that landmark, approaching the mosque for up to 3 years. They used some law from like 1846 or something like that, which essentially had to have a peace bond. Explain how this all works, and was Terry Jones wronged by the authorities in Michigan for not being able to protest outside this mosque?
Yeah, this is a very strange case. I do think he probably has a lawsuit against the municipality for doing this. These old laws from the 19th century were passed prior to the Civil War, many of them, to try and silence public demonstrations and political demonstrations. And they required something called a peace bond, which you had to post. The bottom line is, because this peace bond was $1 that was imposed on Pastor Jones, it's clear that this was a pretext to get him out of town. You can't do that in the United States. This was a clear violation of his free speech rights. Freedom of assembly, freedom to protest. While I find everything that he is doing reprehensible, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled in the last couple of months that he's free to do it. I have no idea how this judge in this court could have ruled the way they did, other than to simply make him spend money for lawyers to be able to protest. I think all of this is clearly unconstitutional.
Right. I mean, isn't this somewhat also related to the case of protesting at the funerals of soldiers? You can't really do bar one and not bar this case as well, or,
Well, that's what I was saying. The Supreme Court, in the protest that these pathetic people do, that Westboro Baptist does, the Supreme Court says you cannot stop these demonstrations. And what this city did is basically they said you can't come into our town, and not only that, you can't come into our town for the next 3 years. They issued a 3-year ban on him getting into the town or getting near this mosque. That's just unconstitutional. This guy wasn't going to blow up somebody. He's not a terrorist. They speak vile words. Well, that's protected speech.
All right, let's turn to this case in Baltimore. I don't know if you've seen the video or not, but it's gone viral, of a transgender being beaten in a bathroom at McDonald's up in Baltimore, and then the woman was then pulled out of the bathroom, and the beatings continued inside the McDonald's, where there were several employees just standing around doing nothing. One was even videotaping the whole incident. They're talking about possibly a hate crime. That's fine and dandy. I don't necessarily want to get into that. But what about McDonald's? Are they liable here? And can this woman sue? Would there be possible criminal charges against the people who work at McDonald's for not doing anything to stop it?
The duty of someone who owns a public accommodation, which is what McDonald's is. And remember, they're open to the public. They can't keep you out except for disorderly conduct. They can't keep you out for sexual orientation, race, religion, whatever. Once you're in, you're there legally. They have a duty to protect you. Once they did nothing, including did not call the police, as I understand it. I don't know the full circumstances.
Is that enough, calling the police? Do you need to have a security guard there, too?
No, you do not have to have security at a restaurant. That's not required by state law or anything else in Maryland. But to do nothing, to stand by, that now becomes a jury question as to whether or not the staff should have done something to protect her. Probably they should have, but the issue, that's really going to be a question for the jury.
But they're not required to jump in there and break up the fight.
That's for a jury to decide. That's not a question.
So the guy behind the counter giving your fries, he might have to jump the counter and break up a fight?
He, at a minimum, has to call the police. And the question is, did they do that? And my understanding is they did not. That's, from a liability standpoint, the failure to call the police is the end of the ball game for liability for McDonald's. They're going to settle this case. Believe me, McDonald's is not going to argue with a transgender person.
Right.
This woman was clearly wronged. This whole situation is part of a pattern of things that are very, very serious and dangerous against homosexuals and transgenders. This kind of stuff has to be punished severely and immediately. And McDonald's, believe me, is going to pay this woman a large amount of money very quickly. And then the people who did this, who will be caught because of the tape, they're going to have no problem finding out who these people were. They're going to be severely prosecuted. But McDonald's has liability at this point. Now, if they called for the police and the police did not show up or delayed getting there, McDonald's might have an argument that they did all they could, quote unquote.
All right. Thank you, Joe. As always, we appreciate it.
Okay, guys.
Joe DIGENOVA, our legal expert here on WMAL. Let's take some phone calls on this because, you make a good point, and we've talked about this before. I mean, are you obligated if you work at McDonald's to do something to try and break this up?
And I would think, sort of morally, I think you're probably obligated. I remember walking one time into Georgetown, and I saw a brewing fight, homeless people, a male much bigger than a female. I jumped in the middle of that. I did my best Samuel L. Jackson, let's be cool, people, kind of thing.
Right.
So I think you have some response. Now, do you have a legal responsibility, and then what are the liabilities? Now, that's a far more complex question. 1-888-630-9625
is the phone number. You can text feedback to 68683. We'll get your phone calls coming up. 717.